question is, how, in general terms, how could the midas of Atzilus be called small or little when they're infinite? Now, true, they're infinite only compared to Biyah, but they're compared to levels, the Kesed, levels Lifnei HaTzimtzum. They're not limited, they're not infinite. But the Rebbe said if there's a property of infinite, even relative, then that's a keli for the true bligvul, the true infinite one. Why? Because if you're going beyond your limits, you're making space, as it were, for the Eibishter's unlimitedness, even if you're only going beyond your limits and going beyond your limits, that level is a level of containment or of limitation for someone higher. That's irrelevant. And the Kuda is that a person, whatever level we speak of, and it applies to a person as well, each one on their level, that's a keli for the Ma'id Hamiti. So Atzilus is bligvol, and how could it be called Zutta, little or small? The answer was, anybody, the answer? Small in the virtuous sense. Small because the midah itself is small. Chinas bittul. What does it mean that the midah is small? That the midas of Atzilus claim no value per se. So what's the value of Atzilus, of Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, just said all of the spheres, which in our context includes all 10. What is the value? Value is that this is how God is choosing to express himself. That's its value. Whereas as you go down Yishtal Shalos, and certainly in this world, these attributes are inherently valuable. Chesed is Chesed, what a might, beauty. We speak about them as virtues, period. Clear? I just explained this straight line.
Why can't you say that Chesed of Arich is naturally natural?
And it's not about Chesed of Arich.
Fine. And okay, or Chesed of Atzilus is a reaction of what it receives. It doesn't feel great. It receives from where it gets from, and it's humble.
And we're talking about the Eibishter. I don't know what that means. We're talking about God. It. What's it?
I hear you.
What does it mean? We're saying that.
Atzilus is not very close, but it's not God. It's still an expression.
Yes, that's the point. It's the Eibishter expressing himself. You say, here's spirit. So, as we explained, what this means is that in Atzilus, not lost on Atzilus as it is lost on Bria because of the Tzimtzum. It's true of Bria, it's true of Yitzhira. Ein Mulvada is true of everything. It's just lost on creation and the manifestations to whatever degree because of the Tzimtzum. So not lost in Atzilus is the truth. From God's perspective, it's Das Elyon. That what are these midas? The Eibishter's desire to express himself in this way. So the midah itself is small, meaning to say, the midah itself does not express inherent value. It's bottle to the Eibishter who is choosing to express himself that way.
Like Malchus.
And Malchus has that property in general, yeah. Although Malchus is a receiver. Malchus is already a receiver. Atzilus is not a receiver. Laha'atzil is to emanate. It's God emanating his presence. Malchus, even in Atzilus, is already a different category. That Malchus already gives rise to and acknowledges and makabel governance. Governance means you're governing something else. Words only apply when you're speaking to somebody else. So Malchus already, it's mamish, we're talking about in the Kabbalah. Atzilus is not appropriate to speak about Atzilus being in the Kabbalah of the Eibishter. Atzilus is God's expression. The 10 divine attributes. They're his attributes. But Malchus already is this link. Malchus is most enigmatic. On one hand, it's part of there's the spheres, on the other hand, it's already bound up intrinsically with recipients and creation and governance and being a king, which implies being a king over otherness. A person on a desert island can still be a kind person if there's no one to bestow kindness of. You can't speak about something being a king on a desert island where there's no one to be king of. It's not together. But chesed and gevura, these are the type of person. So the Eibishter has chosen to express himself in this type of way, with these qualities. But the key point is in Atzilus, even though they're gvul, we have descriptions here, very, very elaborate and sophisticated descriptions of this 10 tzviras of Atzilus, but not, they're all b'chinas bittul, meaning that they all transparently, in the world of Atzilus, what, in other words, let's go to Atzilus and see what's going on. So you go to Atzilus, what are you seeing there? Seeing God expressing himself in 10 ways. That's not lost. That Eivish is expressing himself in 10 ways. Go down in Bria, what do you see? You see 10 beautiful qualities that come from God. The further down you go, the more the qualities themselves are the mitzias. And loss, more and more loss is that it's expression of him. So much so that in Leilam Hazeh, there are these properties, this beauty in the world, and there's fury in the world, and there's kindness, and there's tenderness. There's properties in the world that just are here, intrinsic, and apparently independent from anything about them, because he is complete sense, complete health. Yeah? So again, Acha Inyanhu, let's see the answer just below the number 28. Now, all of this is going to just really, okay, we'll see. The answer why the tzviras are called the Ze'er, little, and Zuta, small, because it's not that we're saying that Gimel, not that the end of Gimel, we're not that they're saying that the chesed is limited, it's believable. So why is it called small? But the chesed itself is, as we explained, nullified. Nullified to who? To the Eivish expressing it. The illustration of that practically is Avram. Avram Avinu expresses that. Because of his bittul, he's not either Bal Chesed. The Chesed flowed from him in a very humble way, not as an expression of I am Mr. Chesed. He's Mr. Humble. Therefore, he mashpia. Therefore, he's mashpia. But not that he's exhibiting, he's a big Bal Chesed and gets a Bal Chesed award. And he puts up on his shelf. What, you puzzled? Huh? Question?
I didn't. Okay.
His chesed was not calling attention to his virtues.
But it's the bittul that causes his chesed.
Because of his bittul, is mashpia, yeah.
So the bittul creates chesed?
Yeah, that's simply bittul. Because of his bittul, he's giving. Not because he's Mr. Giver.
Oh.
There's a huge difference. Baal Chesed, he's a Baal
Because I'm
Chesed.
a nobody and Hashem is everything. That because I'm a nobody and Hashem is everything, it makes me do chasadim.
Yeah, so it's a privilege to be able to be a vessel, to be able to help others, etc. All God's doing is not his own Indian. He's just channel.
It's a big chiddush, not to say it's a Baal Chesed. No, he has bitul. Because he has bitul, it causes him to have chesed.
It's simply say, classic Baal Chesed. He's
He's a person of bitul.
a philanthropic person.
Right.
As opposed to Avraham, he's a Baal Chesed, and he acknowledges that within himself, and so does everybody else, and it's a beautiful thing. And he gets the Chesed award of the year. Avraham would know what you're talking about. Chesed. You would know what you're talking about. This Yid needs, and he's been blessed by God to have, he gives. But now comes the enigmatic part. So we just spoke now the Maila, now comes the real side. The Maila of what? Of Chesed of Atzilus, the Pchinas Bit. Yeah. Now, and the last two lines now. So now that we explained that this Bittul, Chesed Zut, right? It all began with the statement in the Zohar, is Chesed, is Chesed, two kinds of Chesed. There is Rav Chesed, great Chesed, and small Chesed. Small Chesed, we said, is Atzilus. But then, whoa, he said, doesn't mean it's small because of it. It's Bligvul. The smallness is it's Maila, not its Tzor. Because when you read this superficially, it's a Tzor. There's the great Chesed of Arich and the little Chesed of Atzilus. Little, lesser, just less worthy, less expressive of a likus. Now we say that, now we just finished saying, in defining the bittul of Atzilus, that it's a Maila. Analogous to Avraham, Hashpah, the big Baal Chesed. It's not because he's a big Baal Chesed, because he's butler. So, in that case, what does it mean, Rav Chesed of Arich? What does that mean? That's the question. And that's the difference, which you will explain. That's strange. Well, we're going higher, and we're saying it's not bittul. Paradox. As we'll explain later. Dafke. This is a big paradox. The Maila of the Ashpah Chesed Atzilus over the Rav Chesed of Arich, which is a much higher madrega. Could there be a Maila on the lower level? But that's what he's saying, as we'll explain later, that Chesed the Arich is not Mitzad HaBittul. The Chesed is Zoh Mitzad HaBittul, but the Chesed of Zoh, that midah there, is not because of the Maila of Chesed, but because of Bittul, meaning this is how the Eibush is revealing himself. That's why it's called small, because of its Maila. So how could it be that going higher, closer to God, less bittul? What does that mean? The nature of things is the closer to Hashem, the greater the bittul. So you think the opposite, that Arich, Kesed, that's Chesed Zuta. And Atzilus would be Rav Chesed, because there's more tzimtzum, there's a greater sense of independence, relatively speaking. So that he's going to explain. And all of this is to explain the Alter Rebbe's utter negation of even Chesed Yishmo on the highest level. Is all to explain, and how this is the Yesod of Chassidus. Even though there is room for that in our Avodah, but in terms of the foundation, Alter Rebbe is laying down the foundation, the objective, there's no room for it, or at least no room for it independently. So let's reserve all of our judgments till the end to see what the Rebbe is telling us. Now is done. Yuvin's Alpimai Marazal will understand this by introducing the Mishnah Pirkei Yovis, Perakei Mishnah Yud, where the Mishnah says as follows. The person says, remember the Mishnah, the whole Mishnah there. The whole Mishnah is, if a person says what's mine is mine, And what's yours is mine is a Rasha. The person says what's mine is mine, what's mine is yours is a tzaddik. And then there's a machlekes about about the one who says what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. Two opinions which are now explained in the light of Chassidus. Fascinating. What's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours. So the first Tanakh says, that's the average. Not so much average, but the middle level between wicked, not average, but the intermediate level between wickedness and righteousness. Wickedness is what's yours is mine, and this chassidus, piety, rather than righteousness. Piety is what's mine is yours. And what's mine is mine and yours is yours. That's in between midas chassidus and midas harishus, wickedness. That's the Tanakh. And the second opinion is that this is Sdoim. Now, Sdoim is not just wicked, but what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours.
Just because he's not the giver. The fact that he says yours is okay, but the fact that he says mine is not okay. So just because he's not giving, it's a Sdoim.
We're going to see. There's many Purushim on this. It seems to imply that that's worse is what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine. It seems it's worse. So
he's drawing a line.
One level is what's yours. I'm saying what's yours is mine. Surely that's worse. So some Mepharshim say it's not worse. It's a level up from abject wickedness. According to others, it's actually worse, because when I'm saying what's yours is mine, there's many levels to that. Number one, I acknowledge you. And what's yours is mine really means on a deeper level, I'm going to show you, fix you how you need to be. That's what it means by what's yours is mine. I have the right to mix into your business because you're not doing it right, and I'm going to help you. What's the problem with that? The problem is a person has to, you got to respect the other person's place. And if you're going to help, it's got to be on their terms, not on your terms. That's the deeper level here. But when you say, therefore, midas doim, which doesn't give a hoot about you, it's yours is yours, it's mine is mine. Live and let live. Good fences make good neighbors. That's even worse. You just don't care. So what's yours is mine. I care on a deeper level. And even if the literal level, what's yours is mine, I want to take yours, it's still I'm acknowledging it. This is a relationship. We can work with it. It's terrible, but there's a relationship. But when this is what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours, that's not in my universe. I don't care about you. You're insignificant. That's the worst. But Kaponim now is going to explain the Rabbi Chassidus much deeper. So the Tanakh says that what? He says what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours. That's acceptable. So what is not acceptable for the Tanakh? So what's the midas doim here? You're not going to give. If you're not going to give, and it's not going to cost you, and you're still not giving, that's terrible. That if I'm going to give you and I'm going to lose, that's what it means. Mine is mine. What's mine is mine, is what's yours is yours. And if I give you from what is mine, I'm going to be missing. So the Tanakh accepts that. When is it terrible is you're not giving and you're not losing anything. That's not. That increases midas though. But if he's saying what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours, meaning to say, but if I give you what I have, I'm going to be missing something. You're not a chassid, but you're okay. You're losing. But the Yesh'oim, the second opinion says, that's done. Even if you're not giving because you're going to be out of pocket, you're going to be missing something. You're only going to give when you don't lack, that's only time that fine, take as long as I'm not losing anything. Here, midas doim, that is midas doim. That's a higher madrega, a higher level of it. Now he's going to explain this as it applies above. Could you imagine? As it applies to the highest madregas l'mayla. Midas doim or not midas doim? What are we looking for? We're looking for let's get this clear. A hashpa, where the mashpia is not affected, with mashpia is not affected. So one opinion says that if that's where it ends, that's average. But it's acceptable. But if the mashpia is affected, so the first opinion says that's already, you don't have to give such hashpa. And the other opinion says that even when you are affected and you don't give, that's midas doim. That's unacceptable. Now to explain this l'mayla. B'inyan b'oifen hashpa is l'mayla. So to understand the difference, the way it comes from above to us, she'efesh the difference between zen and v'zeh chosed. That one, the recipient benefits and the mashpia lacks as a result. It's one kind of hashpa. You give and you give of yourself, in other words. And then there's b'china zen and v'zeh chosed, and then there's hashpa l'mayla, that the recipient receives, but the giver, it remains unaffected. Okay, so summary. There's two kinds of hashpa milamayla. There's hashpa where the level that's being mashpia is to some degree changed and depleted. I don't say depleted, but changed, affected by the hashpa. And then there's hashpa milamayla that the mashpia is unaffected. The recipient receives, but there's no change for the mashpia. What's the difference? So hefreshu shebein ha'amshochem beiris makifim la'amshochem beiris pnimiyim. The difference is when the revelation is from, just use the translation here, a transcendent revelation. Makif means it transcends completely the makabel, or it's hashpa that comes into the pnimius of the makabel, which you'll illustrate in a minute. Let's get the statement and then explain it. So we're talking makif. When hashpa comes from a madrege, which is makif, then the level that is mashpia is unaffected by the fact that it's received by the makabel. When hashpa comes in a way of pnimius, not surrounding, transcending, but pnimius, drawn within and tailored to the mashpia, the makabel, when it's tailored to the makabel, then there is a change in the mashpia. If it's not tailored to the makabel, there's no change. If there is change. Maybe we'll illustrate. When the mashpia is giving over in a way, in a pnimistic way, when he's engaged, so the mashpia lacks, he's changed. But when it's a makif dikashpa, mashpia experiences no lack or no change. Just to illustrate simply before it goes further, is a teacher, a chassid who hashpa from pnimius, he sits down with the fabreng, sits down, or talk to someone, gets involved in their world, and is mashpia, gives advice and help, etc. Teacher. And that's a pnimi. You're getting involved in the kelim of the makabel and you're tailoring, understanding them. There's empathy and you ought to be empathy. And you are being mashpia in a way that is tailored to the needs of this particular makabel. So then the mashpia is affected. It's not the same person before, during, or after. In simple language, and if you allow someone into your life, then your life has changed.
What is it, chos?
Chos here means change. means change. Chassid in the sense that in that time that he got externally, because at that time that he is busy with that person, he could be advancing his own learning and davening and refining himself. At the end, he's the biggest makabel. At the time, it takes time of his own time, his own avoid, his own learning. Like the story yesterday, that he wore a short coat, because at that time he could not be mashpia. He had to advance in his own learning. He didn't assume the role of Rebbe there. That's him, he was a Rebbe, but he had to be devoted to himself. So then there's the other kind of hashpah, being makif, is a chassid. Just being a chassid, being in the shul, and he's not engaging anybody, he just does what he does. He learns and davens, he inspires and lifts the entire community and others that are watching him. But like chassid, there's no change, maybe even oblivious that he's even being seen. He'll say this between the oyer and shefa, as you say in a moment. Light that emanates or hashpah, like a seichel. Okay, the mind will give the illustration now. And then in the oyer gufa, there's these two efah. Let's see inside the mind. The Yuvan, yeah, but the number 31 in the mind. The mind we'll talk about this. This, by the way, is a subject of the mind that you all said before the chuk.
It's a long time ago.
It's a long time ago.
I remember it.
The dafkin, the mashpah pnimius is the etzem, as opposed to the shpah makiv, the veiling, which is on derech earth. Doesn't use the isis that we're a shefa, but that's the inyan. Okay, let's see. It's all paradoxical. It's always a paradox of thing. It's always the lower dargah, the ma'ale batzilus of the arich, as we'll see, and likewise here. So let's go further. The ma'ale bashpah pnimius. So for you, understand this in light of that which explained elsewhere. Playing base. A heifer is being early shefa. So the difference between the two kinds of hashpah, these are just metaphors. But let's translate them so we'll get an idea. Oil means light. Light is a metaphor. Light is a metaphor. We're not talking about light. We're talking about a likus, but it is a metaphor which the early Mukabalim chose to describe God's revelation, one kind of revelation, a revelation akin to light. And then the shefa. What does the word shefa mean? Literally, shefa means to flow. To flow. So implied in the very language here is the mo'er, the luminary, just is the light emanates. It's effortless, and it's the natural consequence of the sun, and the fact that others are benefiting from its light doesn't affect the sun one way or another. If there's a blockage, it doesn't go. The sun is unchanged. The sun just produces light. Light means the presence of something, the fact that it's acknowledged or not acknowledged doesn't make a difference to the thing itself. Hashpah, flow, means engaged in giving over. Not a natural thing. I'm mashpia, you're not mashpia. Teaching now, you're not teaching now. And of course, the teacher is profoundly affected by his students. Yes, before he's teaching, preparing, while he's teaching, after he's teaching. The true teacher, even after the lesson, Daita alayo, his mind is always on his disciples. He's a different person as a result of assuming the role of being a teacher, mashpia. So that's Eire Shefa. Shefa, hu hashpas mahus dover. Shefa is you're giving something over. K'mei hashpas haseichel, like giving over an idea. You're producing the idea, you're cultivating the idea, and you're transmitting the idea. You're giving over something. And this is the mashpia is thinking and formulating and conveying and engaging He's in a state of constant change in this whole process of being a mashpia. He's not the same before the hashpah, beis hashpah, during, and after he gives it over. Before he gives over the lesson, he's going to prepare himself. What he's going to teach, how to teach it. While he's teaching, he's Torah means preoccupied in giving over the seichel. From the maki from Mukif, it explains in Tanya Parakeh, the first idea is beyond the mekabel, and then it surrounds the mekabel without going to the protimi of how seichel works, how an idea is grasped by the intellect in the various stages that it goes through. That's while he's teaching. He's hinting to it, just saying, the kids, when he first starts teaching, he gives idea in a general sense, that then he has to bring it down. The idea is internalized by the mind. The idea surrounds the mind. All the various stages of internalizing an idea is explained in Tanya Parakeh. Even after giving over, Torah is preoccupied. He just says, etc. I'm not sure exactly what he means. But as I mentioned earlier, that a true teacher is connected to his disciples and Talmidim, not only b'shas hashpah, but his mind is on them constantly. The fact that the mashpia is changed by giving over zechsar on a simple level during that time. He could be advancing his own learning and not get involved in the level of the makab. We'll continue tomorrow, and for sure, he gives we're talking about hashpah of water. For sure, here's a cup of water, and you're pouring into a keli. There's less water now in the cup. For sure, you just given the substance of the water. For sure, there's a very great change, a literal chesed, as opposed to oil. As opposed to oil, where it's mashpia, there's no change in the mashpia. This one benefits, but the mashpia is not lacking. Whereas shefa is he's given the recipient is benefiting, but the mashpia has changed. Again, the mila will be that after there the mashpia gains. But right now it's chassid. Right now he's busy with answering questions and involved in the world that's not his world. We continue tomorrow all this to explain the is chesed, the mila b'hashpah pnimius, the mila of chesed, zuta, etc. I'll explain what the Alter Rebbe is telling us in this foundational letter right after h'tשכ. The Rebbe sets the bar very high for us, friends. The first thing is, we should at least know